Welcome to the Rotary Time Show, a public service program presented by Rotary District 7610. I am your host, Deborah Jackson, and on our programs, we talk with Rotarians and community leaders and discuss how Rotary International builds partnerships to support local, national, and world communities. Again, I'm your host, Rotarian Dr. Deborah Jackson from the Rotary Club of McLean, Virginia. The success of a Rotary Club is dependent on the club president. They lead, inspire, motivate, and connect their clubs with communities and others locally and around the world. Joining me remotely is Rotarian Sonia Patterson, who is the new president of the Rotary Club of Vienna, Virginia, for the Rotary year 2024-25. Welcome, President Sonia, to the Rotary Time Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're just excited, as always, to hear what our clubs are doing and how our club presidents are navigating their most recent challenges, because you're new to the job. So congratulations again on your presidency.
Oh, thank you. No, it's been a lot of fun so far, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the year.
There you go. Let's start off by talking about your background. Help our audience understand a bit about who is Sonia Patterson in your life before Rotary?
Sure. Well, I'll start at the very beginning. I am the daughter of two Presbyterian ministers. I was born in the Catskill Mountains of New York, and I grew up in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. We moved there when I was 7 years old. So I always say I'm from Southern Pennsylvania, but I've got that connection to the Catskill Mountains of New York. I have a twin sister and three brothers, and I went to college in Ohio and graduate school in Arizona. And throughout my professional career, I have worked in business, but mostly nonprofit. I've got an MBA from the Thunderbird School in international entrepreneurship in Latin America. So I spent a fair amount of my career in Latin America, especially after I got out of the Peace Corps, where I served in Honduras for 2 years and became fluent in Spanish. So that really sort of set my life on a path. And at that point, I started working with other companies in the Caribbean and in other Latin American countries, which then grew into a position based in Washington, D.C. with an international relief and development organization. So I was able to travel all over the world and work in financial management and program development and capacity building for lots of international programs and projects, including taking over as the CEO and president of two different organizations throughout my career. And now what I'm doing is some nonprofit consulting, working with leaders, with nonprofits, houses of worship, helping organizations basically do good well.
Okay. Well, you're perfect for Rotary. Sounds like your journey was meant to put you right here in Rotary. And I'm going to ask you, how did you get involved in the Rotary Club of Vienna?
Oh, well, that's a great question. So I will say that my father was a Rotarian, so I grew up knowing Rotary and going to the chicken and stuffed dinners every year, which was their fundraiser up there. And so when I moved to Northern Virginia, I was married in 2007 and moved out to the suburbs from Washington, D.C. And that's when I took over as CEO of the first international relief and development organization that I was leading. And that organization was based in Vienna. And so one of our contacts through our network basically invited me to a Rotary Club meeting. And I was there to meet people, get to know the community better. And when I walked in the room, I knew that it was the right fit for me just right away, because I could tell it had this small town feel to it, even though it's right outside of Washington, D.C. It really felt like home.
Good, good. And that's why most clubs, it happens anyway for most people when they walk through those doors, that welcoming atmosphere, a sense of belonging once they get there. You feel it right away. I think we've all been there. So we're glad that you decided to join the Rotary Club of Vienna. Tell us a little about the Rotary Club of Vienna. What's the size? When do you meet?
Sure. We have 70 members. We meet on every Wednesday at lunch from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Westwood Country Club in Vienna, Virginia. And our club is pretty dynamic. We have a healthy mix of men and women, and we also have a really healthy mix of generations in our club, as well as different cultures represented as well. It's a fascinating combination of different folks that live and represent the community of Vienna, and we are honored to host and be a part of what's happening in Vienna. It's a wonderful partnership that we have with the town.
Yeah, Vienna is an exciting place. It's grown tremendously over the years. So I've watched it grow and I've been amazed. So you're absolutely right. It's become very energized and it's just a unique place, for one to be. So you all are doing some great work there with the partnerships that you have going on. You mentioned you have generations. How many generations do you think you might have there?
We have 3 generations.
Okay. Some of our clubs we've noticed have at least almost 5 generations.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
oh my goodness. That's quite
just
something.
navigating that in itself can
Yeah.
be a challenge. So it's good to hear that. Let's talk about maybe some of your club service functions. How do you ensure that the club is moving along effectively? And you're the new president. You've got to ensure that your meetings take place, you have speakers or not. How do you ensure that your service to your Rotarian community is effective every week?
Oh, it's such a great question, because I really think that's the core of what it means to have a good Rotary experience. When I took over as the president of the Rotary Club, I decided that what we needed to do was communicate to our members ahead of time what was coming up for the month. So I started a newsletter on July 1st that went out. It talked about the whole month of July, who all the speakers were going to be every single week, what different service projects were coming up, and even ask them to plan ahead 2 months, 3 months, 4 months out, because you know how busy schedules can get. And so as the year has progressed through August and September, things have gotten busier. We've been doing more and more and more. And one of the key initiatives that I have this year is that we are doing at least 1 service project per quarter and hopefully 1 a month, but we're sort of ramping up to that. But we have been doing a lot of service projects so far this year. We've done at least 3 that I can think of, and we're in the midst of doing another one in October. So we're really busy. And then in January, we start our kickoff for Viva Vienna, which is our huge service project that culminates over Memorial Day weekend.
Okay. Sounds like you all are doing a lot. And let's talk more about maybe some of your service projects. I know one that's you have been involved in with my club, the McLean Club, and we're excited to partner with you in that. Are you doing more partnerships or more just in-house kinds of activities?
Well, yeah, to mention what that partnership is that we have with the McLean Club, we've partnered with you to support the Global Peace Foundation, which really supports women and girls in crisis living in West Africa with access to sanitary napkins and other feminine hygiene products. We wanted to be a part of that because we recognize that girls and women can't function and be a part of society if they don't have the right types of products that they need to be able to function. But at the same time, we wanted to do something that would have that impact locally, because we do know that there are examples of women and girls living in homeless shelters or in other places that don't have access to those products as well. So we've partnered with Bras to launch the product campaign throughout the month. So at the end of October, we're going to go and split the products that we've collected between the 2 organizations. In terms of the other projects that we've done a town cleanup project. We have done a meal packing project, which was really interesting. What that one was pulling together breakfast packets for families in need, operating out of a central location in Central Virginia that targets the lower income families in that region. And it's only breakfast packets because, again, the idea is that, with kids going to school and families on the run, this would be something that would be really strategic. And it was easy for us to pull those kids together and work as a team. And we did a fair number of of meal packets that day.
Wow. Wow. How many would you estimate? Because I know
I
how
want
it's
to say it was
important.
something like 5,000.
Oh my goodness,
It was a lot,
that's
but you have to
huge.
remember they're tiny little packets, but there was a whole assembly line that went through, and you had to weigh and you had to measure and you had to seal and that kind of thing. So there was a process, and then when we got a certain number, we put them in a box and then we loaded the boxes. So,
Hmm.
it was a lot of just getting the materials there, getting the boxes there, dropping off the boxes, a tremendous amount of legwork.
Yeah, but look at the impact that it will have in a school. When we think about our Title I schools, or those our schools that are operating where families are operating that were below the poverty level, just to be able to pass those packages out on weekends or on Fridays, so kids will have something to eat even on the weekend. We sometimes forget that this is life-saving in some families. So I'm happy, as a former educator, well, I guess it always will be an educator. I'm happy that you all are doing that and keeping those families starting at the elementary level in mind.
Oh, absolutely. And we've also been in partnership and support of many other organizations working in food insecure places in Northern Virginia.
Mm.
One that comes to mind is Food for Others,
Mm.
that we have supported for many years. And they're doing tremendous work. I mean, they've got a warehouse full of food. They're doing the school packets, for children, just like you mentioned as well. So we're really trying. I mean, there's just so much need out there, and I don't think that people recognize, okay, Fairfax County is one of the wealthiest counties in the country, but at the same time, we have a tremendous number of people in need. And
Absolutely.
when I started in July, I said, I want to think about, what does a community assessment look like? What are the needs in this community? And how can the Rotary Club step up and be an effective partner to address those needs? And, it wasn't just the product delivery, if you will. It was also thinking through how we live and what example we give. And that's why the environment focus that we did with the town cleanup project was so important, because this is a town that we all, love and live in and appreciate, but it's got trash in it. So it coming together and really cleaning it up was a way that we could honor not only our partnership with the town, but also just the environment. And it's a very important subject for many of us in the club.
I have a quick question for you. You mentioned community assessment. Many of our clubs aren't aware that that is the perfect way to find out the needs of your community so that you can formulate those partnerships. When was your needs assessment done?
Well, I did the needs because I come from the nonprofit management background. And so I did my own needs assessment, knowing what I knew about what organizations were working and operating in Vienna, and then also recognizing what the Vienna Club had done up until that point. I've been a member of the club since 2012. So I have that historical knowledge of what the club has been involved with. And then I've also worked independently in my own business with many other nonprofits and organizations within the area of Vienna and Fairfax County. So I'm very familiar with what the needs are. And I was able to articulate that and sort of pull a plan together for our club.
Wonderful. We're going to take a short break and be right back and talk more with President Sonia. Please stay with us.
Possibilities are all around us. We see potential in unexpected places. And when we share our knowledge, vision, and connections, we turn great ideas into action in communities all around the world. Together, we can make real change happen. We're Rotary. We are people of action. Get involved at Rotary.org.
Welcome back to the Rotary Times. We're here talking with Rotarian Sonia Patterson, the new president of the Rotary Club of Virginia for the 2024-25 Rotary year. Oh my goodness, you have really elaborated on your service. projects that you have in your community. And thank you for sharing the piece about the assessment. So often we hear presidents and club officials say, we don't know how to figure that piece out. And I think you gave us a guide. So I appreciate you going into that. Now that you know what the needs are in your community, are there things that you're thinking about doing that might be new that you want to institute during your time as president?
Yes, definitely. So I want to start maybe up at the 30,000-foot view and think about how our club communicates to the community and what we tell them in terms of the value add that we bring to the table, and how we articulate Rotary's values within the context of Vienna. And so, you know, improving our marketing, improving our communications, talking about our, you know, giving stories, giving examples of transformation. Every year when we do Viva Vienna, we raise a lot of money and we give it to our partner organizations, but that actually results in impact and change in people's lives. And we want the people in Vienna to recognize that impact. It's not only local, it's national and it's global, and it is incredible. So we want to be able to tell that story better. The other thing I want to do this year is I want to focus on some foundational sort of structural things with the club. So for example, running our board meetings a little bit differently, talking about how we do internal communications a little bit differently, thinking about leadership development and getting more people in the pipeline for different positions. These are all things that we need to be thinking about and doing in our club. And I'm hoping to inspire people and help them recognize that these are things that we need to do, and we all need to come together on those for the betterment and improvement of the club. Because if we're a strong club internally, then that shows externally. And I think that's really important that we're taking the time to address those things.
Let's talk about succession planning. Right? How are your officers selected? Is it that they start with the 3-year vision and move through all the roles and come on up to the presidency? What's the process in your club for developing your leaders to get to the presidency?
Sure. We've tried different approaches. So we have tried that approach where we have the 3-year trajectory, if you will. I think we've moved away from that in recent years, where different individuals and circumstances really haven't allowed them to plan 2, 3, or 4 years out. And so in that case, what we do is a lot of informal networking, a lot of training, a lot of talking with each other, understanding where people's passions are, what they're interested in, and then making sure that we connect the dots, because we want to be able to give people opportunities. We have a club where we have a number of people who are past presidents. And so that's another thing too, because we want to be able to bring new people into, the leadership roles in the club. And again, it's not just president, it's secretary, it's treasurer, it's foundation chair. It's all of those things that really form the backbone of the club. And so we've done that differently. And again, we're going to be tackling it more here in the next couple of months as we think about what we want to do next year.
Great. Do you all have an Interact club attached to your club?
We are very, very close to starting one. Yes, we're literally in the process of getting one established at Patterson High School.
Wonderful. What has been your challenge in getting one started?
I think finding some champions within the high school that are willing, some of the students that are willing and passionate about what Rotary represents, to be able to dedicate their time to be the leaders within their own clubs. And we have identified those young people. They have stepped up. And then I think the second challenge is sort of the bureaucracy side of it, where, you need to have the sign off for the administration, but you also need to make sure that you're ticking all the boxes that Rotary requires. And so all of those things combined make it a bit of a slow process. I mean, it's just not something that happens overnight. This takes tremendous dedication. It takes a lot of relational work in order to build that trust, not only with the school officials, but also with the young people that are committed to being young Rotarians. And it's an exciting time.
Yes, it is, because I view it as a pipeline to Rotary. When we can, tap those young people who are all about service. What a way to communicate to them about service locally in their communities or nationally or internationally, to give back and serve. That's the key. So it was great.
Yes,
I'm glad.
absolutely.
And Madison is a
service
wonderful
above
high school, so I wish you all the luck on making that piece a reality. How about international projects? Are you all involved in some of those?
Oh my goodness, we are involved in a fair number of them. We work with the Leadership Mission Institute in Honduras that trains young girls through the high school years and empowers them as young professionals. We have graduates coming to the United States and really being role models for other girls, which is a way of paying it forward in that case. So that's a wonderful partnership that we've done, and we've gotten involved initially by sponsoring students within that school, and then those relationships have flourished over time. We also support the Strategic Water Alliance that many clubs in our district support. Again, access to clean water is such a basic thing, but it goes beyond water. If you have water, then it means the kids are going to school. Then it means the mother has time to maybe do a little bit of a business on the side because she's not so worried about spending all of her time trying to get water, making her kids go and get water. So, when we talk about building wells in various low and middle income countries, it's not just about the water. It's about the secondary impact that, access to clean water provides for communities.
Absolutely. It's saving lives.
Absolutely.
On so many different levels, it's saving lives. I think if I understand correctly, I think there are 17, 18 maybe clubs who are a part of that alliance. And I always think that's an amazing thing because we tend to forget the importance of what water does, and clean water means so much to the economic levels in a community. So thank you for doing that. Any other projects you find to be rewarding?
Oh, well, every project that we get involved with, we love being a part of. So it's always rewarding and it's always interesting. People say that when you support a project overseas, you see the impact of what your support looks like. But I think that the transformation that comes back and the understanding that comes back around the context and why that help was needed in the first place is just as important as the work that's happening in those countries. I will say, just backing up, you asked about some other international projects. We support out of all of the projects that we support, 20 to 25% of them are international projects.
Wow.
And so they involve at least a dozen different international organizations that are working all over the world. We have programs in Georgia, we have programs in the Ukraine, we have programs in Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, which we've already talked about. The Leadership Mission Group in Honduras. We have one going on in Jamaica. So we have a footprint in essentially every low and middle income region of the world, and we are working towards peace building this year, especially. That's another area that we think is really important, and so we're thinking through strategically what are some new organizations that we can get behind and how can we understand what they're doing. And so it's not, again, it doesn't have to be just financial support. We can support them at the advocacy level. We can support them at the volunteer level, so there's lots of different kinds of support that you can give to organizations.
Very quickly, what's been your favorite project?
Oh my goodness, that is such a hard question. I mean, I would have to say the project in Ukraine, only because it's been so profound and so timely and so important in terms of reaching the vulnerable children. It was an outreach program for children that were displaced during the war. So that just comes to mind again because of the timeliness of it. But in the news every single day we're hearing about a new tragedy or another war happening in a different part of the world, and your heart really does break. But I think the challenge as Rotarians is not to let it stop there.
Yeah.
and to really step up and say, you know, there are some things we can do about this. And even the smallest things together are going to make a
It's
difference.
gonna make
And
a
so,
difference.
you know, if we can come together, and we have come together with McLean Club, you know, in that example that we talked about earlier, but there are many other partnerships that we're open to doing. We are a group of Rotarians focused on action and focused on service above self.
There you go. And I was going to ask you about that, and you answered the question about service above self. Thank you for that. And thank you for your comments about your club. You all are doing an amazing job in your community. But if you had one sentence you could leave of a message to our audience, what would you leave for our audience who are out there thinking about Rotary?
You know, the message that I would convey to someone who's thinking about Rotary is to go and get to know people, go to visit a club meeting and see how you feel. And if you walk in the room and you feel a welcome, positive environment, just explore that.
Yeah.
And see where it goes. Because, you know, trusting in how you feel and how welcomed you are and how people open up their arms to you eventually ends up creating so many wonderful friendships, and frankly, friends that are family. I mean, that's what it is. It's friends who are family. And we say this all the time, and I know other clubs say this. For our club, it is absolutely the case. These are my brothers and sisters. We love them, and they're wonderful people trying to do their best to make the world a better place.
Thank you, President Sonia, and thank you for coming on this show. We hope to get back to you again soon.
Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was a lot of fun.
For the Rotary Times program, I am your host, Rotarian Dr. Deborah Jackson from the Rotary Club of McLean, Virginia. You're welcome to join us at a Rotary Club in your area for either breakfast, lunch, dinner, or service project. You can find us here or just look us up on the internet. Many clubs are hosting meetings in person, virtually, or in some hybrid format. You only need to look us up for details. Remember, our time is your time, and it's always time well spent. Please join us for our next program as we continue to celebrate Rotary's 118 years of service above self. Funding for this program is made possible by the generosity of Rotarian Lynn Heinrichs, State Farm Agency, McLean, Virginia.